Today, we've got a juicy topic and we're going to dive straight in. Of course, the recording is going to be available afterwards here or on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe, otherwise, they will find me. But today, we're talking all about sequences, what folks do wrong, and a better way to approach them. And to bring this topic to life, we're one of the best people. He's worked at companies like Outreach. So, sequences, obviously, his bread and butter. But since then, he's done some incredible things. So, I'm proud to introduce to you Anthony Natali. What's up, Anthony? How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to chat with you. I hope you're going somewhere fun at the airport. But yeah, this is always a fun time when I get to chat with you or someone from Lavender.
Mate, your tweet game is on fire. So
Thank
I'm,
you.
I'm glad we're getting to do this live. And I'm not going anywhere that excited. I'm going home, which is exciting for me because kids and stuff. But
Yep.
let's jump straight into the meat and potatoes of it. It's a couple minutes late. I don't want to waste anyone else's time here. I like to ask our guests to start with the most important thing that you need to say about the topic today, which is, of course, outbound sales sequences. So I'm going to give you your soapbox, give you the floor, and let you start with the good stuff. Fancy it?
Yeah. Yep. Let's do it. So yeah, sequences I think are super important for any outbound team. That's the good, right? Like we all know the benefit, but I think sequences have made BDR, SDR, AE teams so lazy. And as a result, um, we've built such a mental spam filter, and we're the ones responsible because of our sequenced messages, our templates. It's so easy to, as a manager, tell your team, you need to have 10 new people in sequence every day, and then you're off to the races. But they don't tell you what to do once you put those people in a sequence. And so if I'm an AE and I have deals and I have discovery calls and negotiations, I'm just firing away like automated messages. Or if I'm an SDR, I have no guidance on what my messaging should be. Or someone opens my email 3 times, what do I do? Do I wait until the next step? Do I do something different? And so sequences and cadences, whatever you want to call them, have really like taken over control. Whereas I think it should be the opposite. I think sequences should be a like compass and a North Star, but they shouldn't be, set it and forget it. You have to follow them. And I think as a result, like people feel spammed and you can tell when you're in a sequence. Your goal as an SDR and a BDR is to be able to use a sequence, but not make it feel like prospects in a sequence. But no one really knows how to do that. So that's my take.
I love that last line you said. You don't want the prospect to feel like they're in a sequence because I think a lot of anyone who's a decision maker buyer knows when they're in one.
Totally.
I'd love to unpack how to do that, but you touched on a few
Yes.
things there. Obviously, sequences have allowed sellers, sales leaders, mostly because they're the ones who really should be coaching and controlling all of this, to hit an easy button. I was doing a post the other day with cold emails, with outbound sales in general. You have two options to improve performance. You can improve the volume. That's really easy to do with all these tools that we're talking about. We can improve the quality, and I think a lot of people tend to lean that way because it's the easier option. So before we chat about some other ways, though, I want to hear you rant some more, Ant, because I was enjoying it. So like, it sounds like right now folks are being given these sequences. They're so busy that they just go ahead with whatever they're being told to do. Maybe they have experience, or maybe, like you said, they're busy because they're an AE or have other responsibilities. What's the root cause of all this? What's made that happen? Why is that the norm now?
Yeah. It all starts from the top, right? We've got at the beginning of the year, we do all this planning for revenue targets, and right, they back into it. They look at the data and say, okay, we know that you need 1,000 activities this month to have enough pipeline to hit your targets. And then what happens is they don't look at what your reply rates are. They don't look at what your connect rates are. They don't look at how much time you're spending on conversations on the phone, right? So many people want to uh, talk about number of dials or number of emails, but they don't look at like the outcome metrics. They don't look at hustle metrics, which I like to call them, which are the leading indicators. If you have a rep who makes 100 dials a day, but has 0% conversations that are over 1 minute, then they're not using their time effectively. They're more busy than they are productive. If you have a rep that sends 50 emails per day and their open rate is 10% or 20% and their reply rate is 0.5, then what are you doing? But on the surface, they're doing what their leader told them to do. I need 1,000 activities, right? And the root cause of that is that most leaders aren't in the trenches. Most leaders haven't done the job in a long time. When I stepped into my SDR leader role, one of the things that I agreed with the founder was that I need to be in the trenches. I need to be walking the walk. Regardless if I'm booking meetings or not, I need to feel what it's like for my reps to engage with these prospects. And that's really the root cause, is leaders being so disconnected and just thinking that activity is the answer. I've heard so many times from people I coach or mentor, or just random messages I get. It's like, hey, my leader's telling me I need more activity. I need more people added to Sequence. I need more emails. And I tell them to politely push back. What if you, for a second, took a step back and thought about who you're going after, what your messaging is? Are you using Lavender to score it? Where are you at? Are you in the 70s? But seriously, I think leaders are doing their teams a disservice when they tell them more activity. But it feels really good, and you feel like you're in control as a leader when you're just like, more activity, because it's the easy way out. And that's the root cause.
I love that, mate. Great breakdown. You've obviously thought about this a lot. I was actually talking to an SDR leader at SDR Leaders Dinner last night, and he'd been brought in to build this team, but some things have been delayed. So he's basically said, okay, in the meantime, just be a BDR. He hadn't prospected since 2015. He said, things are so different now. You wouldn't believe how much harder it is to stand out, how much more noise there is. So that disconnect is really true. I upset a few sales trainers who haven't sold since 2015 with that one, but that's on them. Okay, so you said you don't want your prospects to feel like they're in a sequence. Talked about the hustle metrics, you can look at breakdown. You said, when people open your emails, are you responding to that? Let's talk about the better approaches. So
yes,
how can we go about doing that?
Totally. What's interesting is, there's so much data on, from Outreach Sales Loft, it takes 10 to 12 touches to get a response. I say BS. I say if your messaging is good enough, it shouldn't take that long, right? So my take for creating good sequences is to front load them with manual steps in the beginning, like do the upfront work, and then follow what the data and the engagement says. So it might look something like making sure that all of your sequences, the first step is validating the email, right? So if you're going to send an email, you got to make sure that the email is verified, because if your email bounces too often, you're going to get marked as spam and you're not going to land in the primary inbox. There's a tool out there, IP Quality Score. It's free. You can use it. That's step one. You have to make sure that you're going to actually land in the primary inbox. Step two is making sure your first email is manual. I'm not just saying this, but I do use Lavender, and the team does as well, to make sure that, hey, I may think I'm writing a good email, but salespeople all the time think that they're super smart and they know it all. Lavender is really a good gut check to keep me honest. And sometimes I think I have a killer email and it's just way too long, or I'm being way too complicated. And really prospects have a mental spam filter. So you need to stand out. And so how I break down my initial email is in 3 steps. So the first line of the email is some kind of point of view or relevant trigger. Maybe you can call it a Natali nugget, a little piece of nugget that you find about the prospect or the company that makes your outreach relevant. When you get on a cold call, you're saying, hey, the reason why I'm calling, you better have a good reason for why you're calling. That same exact reason is why you would, what you would put in your first line of the email. It makes it so hey, I've done some kind of research. I'm relating to your business or your situation. This is my point of view of what I saw. Second line is a problem that you've already solved for personas like them. So let's say I'm reaching out to CROs. I'm not making up this problem statement in the second line out of thin air. I've already went to my case studies. I've done research with my current customers, and I've understood what are the top 3 problems that we solve for CROs. Because chances are, if someone's invested 6 figures in my solution as a CRO, their peers also have that problem. It's probably not a one-off scenario. So what better way to get someone's attention than to relate to them by using your customer's language? So I like to frame the problem statement in the second line using customer language to show that I understand them, right? It's not something that I'm making up as a sales rep. And the third line is like how you've driven impact by solving the problem with some kind of stat. And then what I like to do with the CTA, I don't like to use open to learning more or sound interesting because everyone uses it. So instead, I kind of like to say something like, is this on your radar at all? Have you run into this before? So you're just piquing interest about the problem, right? And the reason I'm not saying this interest-based CTA is bad, but I think so many people use it that you have to try something different. And so that framework is a way to make it seem like you've done research, but they're in a sequence, but it doesn't seem like it's a templated email because it's specific to them. It's specific to their persona. Now, there's of course going to be other steps within the sequence that you follow. But for me, what I like to do is I like to do a LinkedIn profile view after I send the email. Now, if I get 2 or more opens, because if it's 1 open, it may be like the spam filter, but if it's 2 or more opens, I will do a couple things. I'm going to call them right away, but what I'm going to also do is I'm going to send them a connection request on LinkedIn, right? Here's where the sequence for most folks controls them. They may have someone open their email 2 times, and their next LinkedIn step may not be until like end of next week. But someone just opened your email twice. You should use that as a sign of intent, a sign of interest. So you may say something on LinkedIn like, hey, Will, I shot you over an email. Just wanted to put a face to the name. Hope you have a strong rest of your week. Boom. What I've done there is I pointed them back to the email, and then they're going to open it again. And then maybe I call them and I catch them. Hey, Will, this is Anthony over at Outreach. Does that ring a bell? Right? Now what you've done is you've created this like triangle approach where they've saw your email, you've built, it's like building brand awareness, you're educating them. And then they saw your LinkedIn message. Now, when you call them, they're going to recognize you because you've got 2 or 3 touch points. But let's say they don't open or they don't respond to your phone call, but they accept your LinkedIn request. By them accepting my LinkedIn request, that's another sign of intent. So I'm going to use that as a way to engage and prioritize that activity, right? What we do so often is we just look, it's Wednesday, I've got all these tasks, but you should look at like, how are my prospects engaging? Who accepted my request yesterday? How can I switch up my messaging now, right? Let's just say my email gets opened my initial email gets opened like 5 different times. I will not use the same second email on that prospect who's opened my email 5 times as I would for someone that hasn't opened my email yet. That to me seems like a waste. If someone's saw my email showing strong signs of interest, they've opened it 5 times. I may not wait until Friday to bump it. I may bump it the next day instead, right? So it's all about like really being the quarterback of the sequence and making it because otherwise, if you just wait till day 3 and you send some like random case study, then you're just going to come off like the person's in a sequence. It's templated. You need to get scrappy is the main takeaway. Get scrappy with your sequences. Make sure you're using a multi-channel approach. And then I think just to round it out here, because I mentioned really stacking the manual steps in the beginning, is I don't like to use the any thoughts bump. I got this from Will Allred. I call it the relevant bump. Any thoughts considering my initial observation. So I'm giving them some value again, right? I'm giving them some value so that they're more likely to read the initial email. So it's all about, to sum it up, using a data source to verify the email, not ZoomInfo or Apollo. You need to go a step further and verify the email.
Remind me the name of that real quick so I can put it on the chat so people can. You said there was a free tool you use.
Yeah, IP quality score. And then from there, you need to have a framework that you use for your first initial email, but you need to actually be relevant in your first message. Not like, hey, Will, I saw you like dogs. Here's my product. Here's what we do. No, it's it's relevancy over personalization. And then if they open your email or don't open your email, it's like a tree. So if they open my email, I take them down a different path. If they don't open my email, they continue down this path. Otherwise, everyone's going to go down the same path, and it's just going to feel the same. You need to treat prospects differently based on their intent and their interest and their level of engagement. So that's what's worked for me, and I'm happy to share an example sequence as a follow up that we can provide everyone that's joined.
Yeah, let's make sure we do that. So anyone who's here live who wants to see an example sequence from Anthony afterwards, I'll do the follow up, mate. So I'm not going to do much work on you. Just comment Natali's nuggets in the comments, and I'll make sure I get you a copy of that from Anthony afterwards. All right. A couple of other questions in the chat. What's that tool that Anthony mentioned? IP Quality Score was the name of it. So just plug right there so you can see that. Just check it out. It sounds free. It sounds like a good tool to use. The other question that I've seen, and I think a lot of people would be thinking this, you're talking about a lot of work, a lot of thoughtful work up front. And I could hear the objection in a couple of sales leaders and sales reps. This is going to take too long. I could have sent 100 emails by then using my current sequence strategy. How can you make sure you're still balancing this? Because realistically, we don't want to spend a day just customizing sequence for one prospect, right? So how do you balance this quality with that quantity that is needed to succeed?
Yeah, for sure. So I treat the steps in between the sequence, like the normal sequence layout, I treat them as one-off tasks. It's not so much I'm veering off and creating a custom sequence, but it's more how am I prioritizing my time, right? Like I think about it like prioritizing my accounts. I wouldn't just go after every account like they're the same. So why would I prioritize my activity? Like we only have so much time. So you may as well launch like the 80-20 rule, right? So like focus 80% of your effort on 20% of the people, if you will, that are the most engaged, right? Like if I'm on step 5 with a set of 50 prospects and 30 of them haven't opened my email, but 20 of them have, I'm going to focus on the 20 that have, right? But while still keeping the other 30 like running in the background, I need to prioritize my time because that's what gives me the best shot of booking meetings. And again, this goes back to it almost feels like dirty when you say like less activity and more quality, because it's so hard to let go of this idea that hey, maybe more activity isn't the right answer. Maybe if we took a more thoughtful approach and we took the time that we spent on sending more emails and we spent that on doing research and coming up with a point of view and being more relevant, that we would get more meetings. But with all this said, I think it's super important with whatever you're doing to act like a scientist, experiment, right? Try new things. You need to measure what's working and what's not. But I've never heard a success story that started with, if we start sending the same email to more people, that will do us more. That will do us a better justice than if we did less and more thoughtful outreach. In my experience, the less you do, but the more thoughtful approach that you take and the quality, that usually yields the best responses. But there's of course a balance, right? Like you have to have that balance of activity, but this idea of sending 100 templated emails and thinking that's going to do the trick, like it doesn't work, and it's going to kill your domain. Just not the approach that I would recommend.
Yeah, that actually brings up another question I have before I get to that. I think you said earlier, like, saying do better, do less, but do it better, high quality could be a dirty thing to say. And I think it's because it's so easy to say, but it's not quite as easy to do it practically, right? And I know you've coached reps, etc. It's not so you can just turn on, all of a sudden I'm sending these amazing, thoughtful emails. It's like you can't walk away from this. It's a skill, right? What are some ways you think people can start if they're not already taking that approach?
Yeah. So I think a really easy way, especially in the times that we're in right now, it starts with like the accounts that you select. What I would recommend to anyone right now is only going after companies that are healthy and growing. There's still companies raising rounds of funding. There's still companies hiring new senior level execs. There's still teams expanding their sales teams or their engineering teams, depending on who you sell to. Those are the companies that I would target, because those are the companies that are most likely to be still investing in the growth of their business. Other companies that maybe are doing layoffs or aren't hiring or put a pause on things, they're most likely trying to stay afloat and aren't really ready to buy, meaning you're probably going to get an objection anyway from them. So you may as well spend your time on the accounts that give yourself the best chance. Now, when it comes to messaging and executing that messaging, I think every SDR that's listening, if you're paired with an AE or if you're not paired with an AE, go to your top performing rep and ask them, hey, the last 3 deals that you closed, what were the top 3 problems they were looking to solve with our solution? Who were the people involved and why did they buy? And guess what? You've got an email, because you just take what the customer said and you put that in an email. And that's how you start, right? Josh Braun says this all the time, but email copy is not written, it's found. If you try to make up the copy yourself, you're going to sound like a salesperson. But if you take the copy from your customers, you're going to sound like one of their peers. And one of the best way to pressure test this is like a tool like Lavender, which will help you understand the tone. It'll help you understand if you sound like Shakespeare or you sound like you're a 3rd grade reading level, right? So it's like very important to have that gut check. But it all starts with who you're targeting, why you're targeting them, and what that copy is within that email. And I think what I just mentioned is really an easy way to find all of those things that you're going to say in the email.
Beautifully said, mate. Beautiful. Everyone in the chat's loving you right now, by the way. I'm glad you're absolutely crushing it right now. By the way, everyone, a few people have asked, the recording is always available afterwards. You can watch it either here or on YouTube or on our podcast, Lavender, later. Also, to just layer on what you said earlier, be a scientist, testing is a big part of this. Practice, testing, seeing the results, seeing what messaging actually does connect, and then doubling down. That success is huge. I want to do a hot round super take, a hot take super round. Jeez.
Yes.
You can tell I'm knackered. I want to just hit you with like a bunch of sequence questions, and you just give me like a 2-word response, okay?
Okay.
You said your first step is checking verifying the email. Second step, what is it, go?
Manual, finding relevant trigger to reach out.
You've mentioned that you can go down a couple of different parts of your sequences. What would be the average length for one of your sequences in terms of steps?
8 to 10 steps over a 20-day period.
Okay, you already answered my second question, the duration of that. That's great. When someone comes to the end of a sequence, how long do you wait before you maybe target them again?
If they've never opened my email, make sure they still work at the company. and then make sure that you're not landing in spam and resequence them, and use your first email. You might as well not waste it. If they've opened a bunch of your emails, look at the company. Are they growing? Are you reaching out to the right person? You may have a prospect that looks like the right title, but they may be responsible for something completely different. So look in their LinkedIn and really understand if you're actually targeting the right person.
Boom. All right. Last of a super round, hot take super round now. All right. You mentioned already, like by doing a bad job sequence, by not validating your emails, by sending a bunch of emails to folks that just aren't relevant and look like they're in a sequence, you can have deliverability issues on your emails. What are some other, I think people get in the mindset like, okay, what we're doing isn't working as well as it's going to be, but we're not losing anything. I have seen some knock-on effects. What have you seen negative impacts of bad sequencing?
Yeah, I think not segmenting your sequences is a big missed opportunity. So if you're selling to multiple personas, make sure that you are segmenting them. You wouldn't want to send CRO the same message as you would a chief product officer, for example. The other thing is segmenting your sequences by level. So you should have a below the line level sequence where you're targeting like managers and maybe individual contributors to get information. Then you have a above the line sequence, which is for directors, VPs, C-level folks that you'll have different messaging for. So I think treating prospects as a one size fit all is the biggest mistake that people make. And then the second biggest one is thinking that shoving more people into a sequence is going to make you have more pipeline. That's not the case. You're on mute.
Yeah, of course. So I'm probably trying to reduce the background noise. Classic, isn't it?
You're good.
I wish we could dive a little bit further on that, but we are looking for a little bit short time here, mate. And I want to make sure you have the opportunity to plug anything you want to plug as well, coming on, sharing this knowledge for everyone, pay any of our guests. So, I like to ask you, is there anything you would like to push anyone listening to check out more of?
Yeah. So
obviously your sequence for anyone, the nuggets in the comments, but anything else?
Yeah, for sure. If anyone's looking for some like extra one-on-one coaching, I do provide that. I focus specifically on outbound prospecting. View it as like an extra set of eyes, someone who's in the trenches, that kind of walks the walk every day and not just like talking the talk. I'm here to help. I can see if I can help. If there's a good fit or something you're looking for, I can make a recommendation on someone else that might be a better fit to help.
Beautiful, mate. I love it. I think one of the best things you can do as a rep, if you're not getting the coaching you need, try and find it somewhere else. So someone like Anthony is going to be a great person to talk to. Or if your team, I spoke to someone last night who's managing 15 sales development reps. There's no way you can do, like, that's 2 days of one-on-ones on its own. So you need some support.
Yeah. And people are asking, just shoot me a DM on LinkedIn, and I'll get back to you. We'll see how we can help. And download Lavender.
All right, that's a lot. You've played Lavender more than most people, so thank you for that. But also, even without using Lavender, all this knowledge is going to be really helpful for y'all. We have time? Yes, we are. Anthony, thanks so much for coming on today. Remind everyone you can watch this recording right here on LinkedIn, on YouTube afterwards. All those recordings are there afterwards. We've had some great guests in the past, and we've got some great ones planned for the future ahead. Thanks, mate. I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate you. Always a great time.
Never a chore.